Great. So we just saw High Hopes, and then after that we saw Cinema Palestine. Tim Schwab, who's the director of that film, is here, and also Mohammed Bakri is in the audience, and we just had a nice little chat with them before bringing you on. So, anybody, you want to ask Guy Davidi a question? Who's the person who's going to go first?
I'll go first.
Yes,
Guy,
Lefty.
other than seeing that David Gilmour was interested in the film, how did you license Pink Floyd?
Well, the question is about how did he license Pink Floyd? The
It's a funny story actually for me. I mean, when I was editing the film, um, Angela Godfrey Goldstein, who had came up with the idea to make this film, and is uh, activist in the Jalin Association. She wanted to make this film about the displacement of Jalin based on archive footage of the 90s. And then when I was starting to think how to create the story, I thought that maybe we should work and cross the images of the Jalin Association with the Oslo agreements to show also that this displacement and the demolishment of their houses is an evidence actually of the not seriousness of the Oslo agreements during that time, and how the Oslo agreements were violated constantly by Israel. So suddenly, when I was affected, I had this song in my head that I felt was kind of suitable in the atmosphere, and then the name of it was High Hopes, and I thought, well, that's a funny song. I remember that David Gilmour was writing it, and I actually I didn't know if David Gilmour is a supporter at all to the Palestinian cause. I know everything about Roger Waters, and so it happened that Roger Waters contributed the music for the Jalin Association other film, which is Nowhere to Go. Um, and it was all just one big coincidence that actually Gilmour is a complete supporter, and he was doing another thing at that time. And he just, it was very fast to be done. It was in 1 month, it was, they just agreed to give us this song, and that's it.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes, more questions for Guy. Yes, there is a question over here, yeah?
Yeah. Sorry, can you hear me?
Well, I can repeat the question for him.
Okay. In our understanding of the conflict today, why is it so important to use like footage from the past? How does that kind of contribute?
Hannah Elias is the person who's asking the question. She's one of our young filmmakers. She made a movie called Rooftops of Jerusalem. And the question is, what is the purpose of using old footage? Is that
What is the
correct?
Yeah, in enhancing our understanding of the conflict now, or why is
In
it
enhancing
still relevant?
our understanding of the conflict now,
Like, how is it still relevant? I guess?
how is the old footage relevant?
Um, I think, well, there was the various types of, um, of footage. First, there was the visit of Edward Said, which Angela found in one of the BBC's archive, and we thought that this is a special moment of him, one of his rare moments when he visited at exactly the time of the demolishment of Tibetan tribes camps. So um, I think in this case, because of the important period, the beginning of the middle of the 90s, the signing of Oslo Agreement, where we actually see in parallel what happened politically at that time. This has an importance to nowadays, and especially when there were in the last years uh, still talks about initiating a peace negotiation, um, and I wanted this film also to become some kind of opportunity to learn from the history, not to go back to the illusions of peace accords where there's no actually intention and there's no practice in the ground to implement disagreements. So I thought that maybe by making this film, I would touch the Jalin issue that are constantly under threat of displacement nowadays, and this is relevant. And these house militias are happening right now. So this is important for them, and this is important to see how this story is ongoing. But also because of this sensitivity of the peace negotiation and the importance to go back to this period and not to think of it as just an opportunity missed, but think of it maybe as not an opportunity, or maybe some kind of a fake mask to show us something that actually doesn't happen on the ground. And so in the future, we will be more sensitive citizens and politicians, whoever, just sensitive to what actually happens on the ground and not the general declarations.
More questions? Yes, there is a question here. Mohammed Bakri.
As a Palestinian, when I saw this film, this short film that he did, I felt that there is a hope that an Israeli guy show me the relationship between the Israeli policy and the Palestinian community, Bedouin or other. Do you have the same hope now after the election? I mean, when I saw your film, I had a hope. Do you still have the hope I had when I saw your film after the elections, after Bibi Netanyahu became a prime minister?
I understand. I heard partly, but I understand.
Yeah, I'll repeat it. Mohammed is asking, he says, when he saw the film, your film, he had hope. It gave hope.
Because he is an Israeli and he is trying to criticize his country,
The
his
situation.
official policy of Israel according the Palestinian community.
And he's criticizing the situation as an Israeli and taking the
And I felt
Palestinian cause.
he's suffering for what's going with us.
Yeah.
So then I had the hope. Do you have the hope, the same hope I had when I saw your film after you saw the results of the election, the last election, when Bibi Netanyahu became the king of Israel?
So the question is, does that hope still exist in you now in view of Netanyahu becoming the king of Israel?
It's a complicated and in a way also very question about approach to life, and I think you can choose hope and you can choose not to have hope. It's a matter of choice. I choose it, but it doesn't mean that I'm not practically looking at what's coming in front of me, and I see that what's coming is more tragedy and more blood and more violence and I mean, I think it will. I really believe that there will be a point in the future that people will have to live together, and I'm sure because it's the nature of things is to evaluate, to find some kind of balance at the end. But I don't know how much blood it's gonna cost, and how much violence, and how much pain, and I guess that it will cost a lot more, and in that sense, I have hope, but it's a painful hope.
Another
Yes.
question. What you suggest me to do? I mean, I am Palestinian, and Bibi said no Palestine, no state of Palestine will be established. And you know, I don't need to tell you what he said. You were there and you saw everything. Anyway, the Palestinians are Abu Mazen and me and myself. We are desperate after all what happened in the elections and after all what he said. What you suggest me to do as Palestinian? To fight in a violent way, to throw stones, to try to negotiate? What you suggest me as your friend? You are my friend. Suggest me something to do. What you do? What I do? What can I do now?
When I was, I'm 36 and I grew up in a city called Kfar Saba. And when I was, I think 16 or 17, you came to my school and you had a piece there in my school. And actually, I don't know if today it's possible to present this kind of piece in my school, but at that time it was. And I remember that this was one of the most important moments of first time that I actually met a Palestinian presenting his identity to me and giving something to me as a piece. And I think what you're doing is great, and what you've done is great. And I don't know as a Palestinian, but I think everybody should kind of contribute in his way to create change. It doesn't. It's the problem, especially with arts but with education and with other issues, is that we cannot measure the influence that we make. I cannot measure a film like High Hopes, like I could not measure what Five Broken Cameras is going to bring, or other films that I've done. I have no idea what to do, but I think that I do believe that education is a key thing, and I do believe that that violence is it can be practical for the short term. It can be useful and important for a short term, but I believe the price of it is we cannot estimate the bigger price that it has. So for me, education and creativity, and to bring more creativity and to bring more ideas and to develop ourselves as much as we can, and to be smarter than the enemy. And for me, the enemy is not Israeli or Palestinian. And I'm not sure that it's really hopeful because I'm Israeli. I think it's a fact of values, and I find partners with Palestinians very easily. This is not an issue for me of identity so much of values and of how to behave in certain in front of this situation. So yeah, but it's a big question how to. I think for everyone that should ask himself.
It's very difficult, if I may make an interjection, because we see Netanyahu at some point, and he's making his point to the United Nations or wherever it is, and he goes, well, there's just only 3,000 Bedouins on that thing, it's just, that's not, it's okay, there's only 3,000, and we can wipe them out too, so it doesn't matter, and it's the attitude more than anything else. And I can't believe the cheekiness of making a point of trying to gain support, saying we need those lands, and it's only 3,000 Bedouins. It's not important. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Anyway.
He's been doing this successfully for decades now.
Right, exactly.
And now it's not 3,000 Bedouin, now it's 7 million Palestinians who need a state, and he said no state for the Palestinians.
Exactly, and this is an issue, it's not only a Palestinian issue, this is an issue that the whole world has to fight for, because, anyways.
I do believe that it's very, very important to have serious pressure from the outside, because Israeli society just by itself, as we see from this election, and I think we'll continue to see, that is just not strong enough as a society. It's for different reasons, it's just not strong enough in this period of time, and I don't know if in the future to overcome its fears and to overcome its hate and to overcome its anger, and to be able to build and to establish a space and relations and if it doesn't happen in this way, there's no other choice but finding ways to put pressure on the country, and that's the responsibility and the help and the work we have to do abroad in the US and in Europe and in other countries, of course.
And also through the arts and through what we have, like our weapon is cinema, our weapon is the arts and culture and educating people through that media, to that means, because then we gain more support and everybody together, it's much more of a power that they have to contend with, but they're sly. So, yes, there's a question.
Yeah. Should I use the mic? I can
Yeah,
use the mic.
maybe you need to come this
Yeah,
way.
come here,
Oh, no,
because
I can come
I
quite
think
far.
it's easier if she speaks into this mic.
Okay. No, I can do it.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for showing your film. It was awesome. Okay. So I wanted to ask, in terms of like gaining an audience. So like, for example, the film that I made, The Rooftops of Jerusalem, a lot of the people that watched it because they already knew about the conflict and they were already like pro-Palestinian in some sense. So they weren't really learning anything new. I mean, sure, they saw a different perspective, but it wasn't like I wasn't changing their view or anything. So how can you like get people who might not be like on this side, how can you get them to watch these films or to, I don't know, open their minds?
I think, yeah, it's a good question we ask ourselves, and no, it's not every film has the same exposure, and you kind of have to accept it. I had films with big exposure, like 5 broken cameras, and films with really small, really small exposure. And I'm not sure that the small ones are actually not meaningful, because of the small ones I could have done the ones that were maybe more successful, and I think it's the power of stories. When you're able to, as an artist, as a filmmaker, to sharpen your abilities to tell the stories, to sharpen your perception, and to speak about life through this story of occupation of Palestine or of different issues, to be able to access more audience, because you don't only speak about something that is local and is a story between Israel and Palestine, but you speak about humanity and you speak about issues that can be reflected in different places, and through stories of people, and then you touch people and then they feel connected. So I do believe in the power of story. But that said, of course, there's also a practical element. I mean, for example, with 5 working cameras, I had a big fight to be able to put the film inside a cultural basket of the Minister of Education, and this was a huge success that we were able to do it, and which means basically that we can go to schools in Israel and screen it to teenagers or to pre-military programs and things like that. And these are small events. It's not about quantity. Sometimes it's just finding people that it's gonna make an impact. And by the way, I don't think that I don't divide the world into convinced and the non-convinced. I think we are all non-convinced. We all have something to learn. Some of us maybe need to radicalize. Some of us maybe need to not to de-radicalize, to learn other things. I think we have, as more as we get, it's not about just deciding that Israeli occupation should be stopped. It's also understanding dynamics and understanding how it's gonna be the path to it, and what should we be careful from. And these are things that every one of us. I learned from my films. From every film, I learned something about, not just about knowledge, just also about how to behave, how to be a man, how to. Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily bad that you screen your film to people who know the subject. I think there are important these people, because one day they're going to be an engine And if they don't feel it right now, maybe in the future there will be. There will be a moment when the window of opportunity is going to open up, and these people, they're going to be very meaningful, and their knowledge is going to be very meaningful, and their tools is going to be very meaningful. And if this window is going to open up and these people will not be ready, this will be really bad for us. So it is important.
Thank you very much.
I think.
Yeah, no, great answer.
More questions? Yes.
Hi there, thank you for showing us your film. Hi. My experience in New York of late is that there are so many more voices calling for a solution, looking beyond the fear of the situation. The Jewish Voices for Peace has really grown, exponentially, and I see so many more positive stories on social media, and not only stories of tragedy. And I'm wondering, inside Israel, even though politically the sort of the peace, labor, left parties, do not seem very inspired at the moment. If at the grassroots level, you also see many people, working creatively to express a desire for unity and peace.
It's a tough question for me at this moment, specifically after these days of election, because I think there's this cycle of rise and depression, and now we're in a moment of depression in the left, even in the radical left. I mean, even me and most of my friends that are more, I would say, a real left and not just kind of a fake left. I think we understand, most of us, that even if this left is hypocrite and is not the left who's going to really create a big change in the region, but it's still important that there will be this kind of shift in dynamic in society, because it's a sign that the fact that Netanyahu won another time in the election means that there is no dynamic in Israeli society, and the right wing is just ruling, and it is a huge bloc, doesn't change, and this is an issue. The fact there is no dynamics and that we're not able to mobilize population, even if I personally, and I think most of the radical left we never believed that this what they call the Zionist camp, or the Labor, the left wing party, would have any opportunity to make something different, because they were not intending to do it anyway. So in a way, our depression is not as big as the mainstream left. But the creativity, this comes from a minority, from the minority of people who are trying to work in different domains, and art and education and mobilization of people and different. This exists always. I think there's a lot of creativity in this country and amongst activists, but we are still far from a turning point. I think, unfortunately.